Hello, Master Manifestors. Welcome back to MethodMuse, where we talk about science based manifestation methods and concepts. Today, we're talking about a fun one, what I call neurohermeticism, because I see Hermeticism as the earliest foundation of what we know as modern manifestation practices. And I think that if ancients had brain scans and the modern methods that we have for experimenting with science and for understanding the mental models that they created back then, I think they would have gotten a lot further. So we're just going to take a little dip back in time and talk about where reality starts in Hermetic neuroscience. In Hermeticism, everything starts in the mind. Everything comes from the mind. Reality is more of a consciousness based system. The way I see things is that it's both. It is a physical based and a consciousness based, depending on how you access it and or how you perceive it. It can be whatever you need it to be. But in modern manifestation, aligned with Hermeticism, your beliefs create your results, not your efforts, which both could be true. But here we talk more about the belief side of it or the identity side of it. And what they didn't probably realize was the breakdown of how the brain is predicting experiences and how it's trying to create mental models of life. And it's got all these stories where in your brain, it's just filling in the gaps of information to match that model and ignoring anything that it considers superfluous or unimportant or not useful or oppositional. So you notice and pursue and stay in the identity that fits your story. So the first principle, you act from what you expect. Your brain predicts and you act from what you expect is going to happen, and your identity predicts your behaviors. So your identity is that system that your mind has created with a story about who you are that is predicting what you'll do next. So Hermeticism says the mind creates reality, and neuroscience shows that the brain is trying to predict reality. So on the second round, our inner state and our outer state results. So Hermeticism is the one that starts with as within, so without, as above, so below. That's sort of where it started, that idea. But everything is coming from internally and we're experiencing externally. In modern manifestation, the state that you're in shapes your outcome. Your experience, what you're aligned with. So it's basically the same concept. Alignment equals outcomes is the general idea here. And it's interesting to see how it's evolved in some of its terms, but in its general practice, it is more or less the same. And in neuroscience, we know now that the nervous system adjusts your behavior. You, in the moment, what your nervous system state is how you'll behave in the moment. And what that develops into the long term creates your alignment. And any kind of stress on the system, any kind of conflict, any kind of fear, lack of safety, you're going to get contracted, defensive, resistant. And fear of things will also make you more attached to ideas. But safety makes you feel open, receptive, creative. And little behaviors that change how other people and how the system itself responds to you. And these responses reinforce who you think you are in your identity predictive behavior system. If I do this, this is how reality will respond to me. This is how other people will respond to me. So your state changes your behavior, and your behavior changes how the system responds to you, how your environment responds to you, how other people respond to you, would adjust your frequency. And in Hermeticism, this would be like the pattern that you're following, your story and your system. And in neuroscience, it's more of a loop. It's like a closed system pattern. When I think if the Hermeticists understood the concept of working with, loops of experience to create alignment, it could have made things a lot faster. I think so anyway. I find that working with loops and contained stories is a lot easier than trying to determinedly and doggedly hold a single state. This way you can move through natural states, but holding a foundational level story about who you are and how the environment reacts to you. Like I'll say things like, I'm so lucky. I really am. I'm incredibly lucky. Like I win things all the time. Crazy fun things happen for me all the time. And my life is really easy. And you see how I have that attitude about it. And now my brain is going to align with that. My neurons are going to wire around that feeling, the collected feeling of what is called vibration in Hermeticism. Raising your vibe is actually expanding your awareness to include more of what you want to see in a positive sense. So in modern manifestation, we say align your frequency, but then they would be like raise your vibration. What we really mean is your emotional and neural wiring, your nervous system wiring. This is how we would see it from the eyes of science anyway. So your feel good hormones, your dopamine, serotonin, they make it intrinsically motivating to do certain things. That means it comes from inside. You're not from the outside, some coach yelling at you, get up and run. No, you want to get up and run. And that's the state that you want to get to. And it's not always easy. Sometimes you do have to push a little bit, but more often, that stress hormone is going to push you into survival mode. It's going to drag you out of alignment and back into your previous patterns because it's going to freak you out. It's going to freak out your nervous system, and your nervous system is dominant. Your thoughts do not overpower your nervous system's training to survive. And repetition of that builds stronger neural pathways that say, if X, do this, if X, do Y. And then those presets, those automated assumptions in your mind that or that you do all the time and every day, those become your baseline. But you can change them. You just don't want to try to change them all at once. Change one here, one there. This is why I generally find that, trying to manifest too many big things, whatever it seems like it's big to you, is never really actually that big. But if it feels like it's big to you, try to do one of those things at a time and maybe like a couple of small things around it. Because when you're getting the small things, they're going to reinforce, oh, I can do this. This is no problem. The bigger thing is coming. So it'll like reduce some of that tension and also give your focus somewhere else to go. So, just a few more things about Hermeticism in general, just because I like talking about these connections between things. It originated in ancient Egypt around second century BCE. Is that what they say now? And it's based off of Hermes Trismegistus, this legendary Greek figure. This is like the time when Egypt was, you know, Greek and Roman. And you'll remember, like, you might have heard of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. So basically, the core principles are mentalism. We create reality through our thoughts. Correspondence, which we call synchronicity now, patterns repeating across planes, as above, so below. Vibration, everything moves, everything is vibrating, which we do know. We do have scientific theories for that now. Polarity, everything has its opposites. You're thinking like the masculine and feminine. That idea comes from Hermeticism. And we do still use that a lot in modern manifestation, especially when we're trying to base identity between creation and action. Being and acting is the way I think of the masculine feminine. The feminine is more the creative be, receive, and then to me the masculine is more the active do, give, put out there. So polarity also comes from those. And rhythm, everything is in cycles. Everything has a rhythm, season. I think of this like we have packets of experience in our brain when I'm thinking of it through neuroscience. Causality, every action produces a reaction. And we do have that in science also. Every potential action, a force, if not acted upon, will continue on its way. But I also think deeper level on a system when we're manifesting things, it's not magic. Even sometimes, though it may appear to be because it's so quick, there were a lot of moving parts that we couldn't see. But there is causality within the system. One thing is happening to affect another thing, to affect another thing. And sometimes it appears to be very, very fast or instant to us, but other times it seems to take a while. But it's really just us aligning and then our environment aligning to us because we have our story and we still have a greater story. So, I'm sorry, the last one is actually the masculine and feminine. The polarity is just the balance of opposites. And if you think about like, if you give one thing, then you need to give something else. If you put something here something else has to move out of the way to get there. And then you have the masculine and feminine. So sorry for that confusion there, but I do hope that this has helped you to kind of see some of the origins of modern manifestation practices as we know them and how they compare to science and the brain scans and the available information that we have now and how it might affect future practices and what we might learn. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and sign up for the Method Muse newsletter in the description below.